The people who judge you first are often the last to realize they've just insulted the person who signs their future. The boarding gate at Terminal B carried the familiar scent of roasted coffee, polished tile, and expensive perfume. Travelers drifted toward the priority lane with quiet confidence, designer luggage rolling behind them in smooth, measured lines. Some checked emails. Others adjusted tailored jackets before stepping toward the scanner. It looked like every ordinary Monday morning for Horizon Dynamics executives shuttle between Chicago and New York. Nathan Walker stood near the end of the business class line with his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. He wore a plain navy jacket that had faded slightly at the elbows. His leather travel bag showed years of careful use instead of luxury. Lily held a small blue backpack decorated with tiny white stars, hugging it against her chest while quietly reading a children's mystery novel she had borrowed from the local library. Nobody looked at them twice. That was exactly how Nathan preferred it. When the gate agent scanned their boarding passes, the screen flashed green immediately. She glanced at the names, hesitated for barely half a second, then handed the tickets back with a courteous smile. "Enjoy your flight, Mr. Walker." Nathan nodded politely. "Thank you." Inside the aircraft, soft instrumental music floated through the business class cabin. Flight attendants welcomed passengers with practiced smiles while helping them settle into wide leather seats. Seat 3A. Seat 3B. Nathan placed Lily's backpack beneath the seat before helping her buckle in. She smiled up at him. "Can I finish my chapter before we take off?" "You can't," Nathan answered. "Just remember to put it away when they ask." She grinned. "I always do." Across the aisle, several executives from Horizon Dynamics recognized one another and exchanged handshakes. Quarterly board meetings always attracted senior leadership, though few of them knew every shareholder by face. Most important investors rarely appeared in person anymore. Then Olivia Bennett entered the cabin. She moved with the effortless confidence of someone accustomed to first-class lounges, private chauffeurs, and people standing when she entered a room. Her cream-colored blazer was perfectly tailored, and conversations nearby softened almost instinctively as several executives greeted her by name. "Good morning, Olivia. Looking forward to today's meeting." She acknowledged each greeting with a brief smile before checking her boarding pass. 2A. She walked down the aisle, then stopped. Her eyes settled on Nathan. Then on Lily. Then on the worn leather bag beneath his seat. It lasted only a few seconds. Long enough. She looked toward a flight attendant. "Excuse me." The attendant approached immediately. "Yes, Ms. Bennett?" Olivia lowered her voice, but not enough. "I believe there's been some mistake with the seating." The attendant glanced at the boarding pass. "I'm sorry. I don't wish to sit next to." Olivia paused, searching for a polite word she never found. "That passenger." The sentence traveled farther than she intended. Nearby conversations faded. Nathan continued helping Lily adjust her blanket as though he had heard nothing. The attendant looked uncertain. "His boarding pass is valid, ma'am." Olivia smiled politely. "I'm sure it is." She looked once more at Nathan's inexpensive jacket before continuing. "But business class is supposed to be comfortable. Could you find another seat for him? Economy has plenty of room." Silence settled across the cabin. Several passengers looked away. Others pretended to scroll through their phones. Nathan slowly zipped Lily's backpack closed. He stood without hurry. "It's all right," he said quietly. His voice carried no irritation. No embarrassment. No argument. He lifted the worn leather bag with one hand while reaching for Lily's small backpack with the other. Lily looked up, confused. "Dad, aren't these our seats?" Nathan smiled gently. "Sometimes peace is worth more than proving you're right." He turned toward the rear of the aircraft. At that exact moment, the chief flight attendant hurried out of the galley, a phone pressed tightly against her ear. Her expression had completely changed. She stopped in the middle of the aisle. "Wait." She looked directly at Nathan, then back at the phone. Her voice became almost a whisper. "Sir, the chairman is already on the conference line." The cabin became unusually quiet. 3 weeks earlier, if anyone had walked past Nathan Walker on a quiet Saturday morning, they would have remembered almost nothing about him. He was the kind of man the world rarely noticed. Just after sunrise, he stood outside a neighborhood grocery store wearing the same navy jacket he would later wear onto the airplane. One hand held 2 reusable shopping bags. The other rested lightly on Lily's shoulder as she tried to decide between 2 boxes of cereal that looked almost identical. "The one with less sugar," Nathan said. Lily frowned dramatically. "They both say they're healthy. They also both have cartoon dinosaurs." She laughed. "I guess dinosaurs are healthy." Nathan smiled, placing one box back on the shelf. They continued down the aisle without attracting a second glance. That had become his preferred way of moving through life. There had been a time when every airport recognized his face, every financial newspaper wanted his opinion, and every executive meeting paused when he entered the room. Those years had quietly disappeared after his wife, Rebecca, lost her battle with leukemia 5 years earlier. The company had continued growing. Nathan had not. Or at least, that was what people assumed. In reality, he had simply stepped away from the spotlight. The board had offered him the chairman's office after Rebecca's funeral. He declined. Investment banks had invited him onto television panels. He declined those as well. Magazine covers arrived every few months with polite handwritten notes. They remained unopened. Lily needed a father more than Horizon Dynamics needed another public executive. So Nathan chose school pickups over shareholder dinners, parent-teacher conferences over business galas, weekend science projects over televised interviews. The decision confused nearly everyone except the people who mattered most. Every Monday morning, however, while Lily sat in school, Nathan quietly became one of the most influential voices inside Horizon Dynamics. Not through speeches. Not through appearances. Through numbers. 70% of the company belonged to him. Not because he had bought an empire overnight. Because 23 years earlier, when Horizon Dynamics was little more than 4 engineers working inside a rented warehouse, Nathan had believed in an idea almost nobody else understood. He invested everything he owned. Then spent 2 decades refusing to sell. Most employees had never met him. Many assumed the controlling shareholder lived overseas. Some believed he had retired. Others insisted he no longer existed except as a legal signature buried inside annual reports. Nathan never corrected them. An invisible owner often learned more than a celebrated one. That philosophy explained why he was flying to New York without an assistant, without private security, and without using the company's jet waiting less than 20 miles away. He wanted to see the company exactly as ordinary people experienced it. No advance notice. No special treatment. No executive escorts. Only observation. 6 months earlier, anonymous employee surveys had begun revealing something that financial reports never could. Excellent profits. Poor culture. Departments competing instead of cooperating. Managers judging appearance before performance. Talented employees quietly resigning. Complaints dismissed because the people making them lacked titles. The numbers disturbed Nathan more than declining revenue ever would have. Profits could recover. Character was harder to rebuild. The board suggested another consulting firm. Nathan refused. "You can't understand a culture," he had told them during a private meeting. From the top floor. Instead, he insisted on seeing everything himself. Airports. Reception desks. Hallways. Lunchrooms. Boardrooms. The moments when people believed nobody important was watching. That was why he accepted an ordinary business class ticket rather than the company's Gulfstream. If respect depended on recognition, then the company had already failed. As the aircraft door closed somewhere above the runway, Nathan looked through the cabin one last time. He noticed executives laughing together. Flight attendants completing safety checks. Olivia Bennett speaking confidently to another senior manager near the front. He noticed all of it. What he did not know was that before the wheels left the ground, One simple seating request would reveal more about Horizon Dynamics than 6 months of internal reports ever had. Olivia Bennett had spent her entire career believing that success left visible fingerprints. You could see it in a tailored suit, in a luxury watch, in the confidence of someone who never glanced at a price tag. Appearances, she often said, were not everything. But they usually told the truth. At 34, she was the youngest executive vice president in Horizon Dynamics history. Financial magazines praised her aggressive negotiations. Industry conferences invited her to keynote events. Recruiters from competing firms called almost every month, offering positions with even larger salaries. She declined them all. She intended to become CEO before turning 40. Everything in her life reflected that ambition. Her mornings began before 5:30. Her calendar was planned 6 months in advance. Every meeting had a measurable objective. Every conversation was a negotiation waiting to happen. Efficiency had become more than a habit. It had become her personality. People admired her discipline. Few noticed the distance it created. Inside Horizon Dynamics, Olivia had earned a reputation for making difficult decisions without hesitation. Underperforming divisions disappeared, and profitable partnerships ended. Quarterly earnings continued climbing, and investors rewarded the company accordingly. The board applauded the numbers. Almost nobody questioned the culture developing beneath them. Several younger managers quietly copied her behavior. Receptionists noticed which visitors received warm smiles and which were barely acknowledged. Junior employees learned that confidence often mattered more than kindness. Appearance became an unspoken language. No policy ever demanded it. Nobody wrote it into the employee handbook. Yet everyone seemed to understand. Dress well. Speak confidently. Associate with successful people. Distance yourself from anyone who looked like they didn't belong. Olivia never considered herself cruel. She believed she was simply realistic. The world isn't fair, she once told a management trainee after a difficult performance review. People make decisions in seconds. Your job is to make those seconds work for you. The trainee nodded. The lesson spread faster than anyone realized. Only one subject remained a mystery inside Horizon Dynamics: the controlling shareholder. Every executive knew the number. 70%. Enough ownership to determine the future of the company with a single vote. Enough authority to replace the board overnight if necessary. Yet the man behind those shares had become almost mythical. Some believed he was an elderly billionaire living in Europe. Others insisted a family trust controlled the stock. One rumor claimed the original founder had disappeared after a tragic accident years ago. No one knew for certain. Board meetings occasionally received handwritten notes, carrying only one signature. N. Walker. No photograph. No interviews. No public appearances. Even Olivia had never met him. She wasn't particularly interested. People with money often preferred privacy. That hardly affected her day-to-day responsibilities. What mattered was performance. Performance created influence. Influence created opportunity. That morning, as her driver stopped outside the executive terminal, she reviewed the presentation prepared for the New York board meeting. Revenue projections looked excellent. Expansion plans were already receiving positive responses from analysts. Everything seemed perfectly under control. Her assistant called just before she entered the terminal. The directors have all confirmed attendance. Good. And legal says there may be a representative from the controlling shareholder. Olivia paused. A representative? That's all they would tell me. She slipped her phone into her handbag. Fine. If someone from the shareholder's office wanted updates, she would give them exactly what they needed. She walked through security with the calm certainty of someone who believed every important meeting could be managed. Minutes later, she stepped into the aircraft. She greeted familiar executives. Accepted their compliments. Checked the number on her boarding pass. Then her eyes settled on a man in a faded navy jacket helping a little girl fasten her seat belt. A worn leather bag rested beneath his seat. A library book lay open in the child's lap. Nothing about the scene looked important. Olivia studied it for only a moment. Then she made a decision that felt completely reasonable. Within the next 5 minutes, that single decision would become the most expensive mistake of her professional life. Sometimes the smallest details arrive long before the truth does. No one inside the cabin noticed the pattern at first. They were too busy arranging laptops, accepting welcome drinks, or replying to emails before the aircraft doors closed. Nathan quietly returned to his seat after the chief flight attendant apologized for interrupting him. He thanked her with a slight nod and asked only one question. "Has everyone boarded?" She blinked, surprised. "Almost, sir." "Good." Nothing else. No complaint. No mention of Olivia. No request for special treatment. The flight attendant stared at him for a second longer before returning to the galley, speaking into her headset in a voice much softer than before. Across the aisle, Olivia noticed the exchange. Interesting. She assumed the airline had simply recognized an important frequent flyer. Business travelers collected elite status all the time. There was nothing unusual about that. She opened her tablet and resumed reviewing quarterly forecasts. A minute later, another detail appeared. The captain himself stepped out of the cockpit. That almost never happened before departure. Instead of greeting the cabin, he walked directly toward Nathan. "Good morning, Mr. Walker." Nathan stood and shook his hand. "Morning, Captain. I appreciate your flexibility with the seating. It wasn't a problem. I hope you'll still enjoy the flight." "I'm sure we will." The conversation lasted less than 20 seconds. Professional. Respectful. Nothing more. Yet when the captain returned to the cockpit, several passengers exchanged puzzled glances. Even Olivia looked up. Captains rarely greeted passengers by name. Especially not before takeoff. She dismissed the thought almost immediately. Perhaps he was an old acquaintance. Coincidences happened. The aircraft doors closed. Cabin crew completed their final checks. A flight attendant approached Nathan once again. This time she carried 2 glasses. "Complimentary sparkling water, Mr. Walker." Nathan accepted only one. "The other is for Lily." "Orange juice?" Nathan smiled. "If that's all right." "Of course," Lily whispered as the attendant walked away. "Dad?" "They're being extra nice today." Nathan looked toward the window. "They're doing their jobs." Nothing more. 3 rows behind them, Horizon Dynamics chief financial officer had been watching quietly. His phone vibrated. A single message appeared. "Chairman's arrival confirmed." He frowned. That made no sense. He glanced around the cabin. There was no security team. No recognizable billionaire. No familiar investor. Had the chairman cancelled? Before he could think further, another message arrived. "Observe. Do not announce." His heartbeat slowed. Someone important was already here. He simply didn't know who. Meanwhile, Olivia continued editing her presentation. She noticed none of the text messages passing between senior executives. None of the uncertain looks. None of the subtle tension spreading through the front rows. Her attention remained fixed on next quarter's expansion strategy. The irony was almost invisible. She was preparing to explain the future of Horizon Dynamics. The man who owned most of that future sat less than 4 feet away. Without warning, Lily dropped her bookmark. It slid into the aisle. Olivia instinctively looked down as the little girl leaned over to retrieve it. For the first time, she noticed the title embossed on the worn leather bookmark. "Dad's Promise." Below it, in faded silver letters, was a simple engraving. "Always choose kindness first." For reasons she couldn't explain, the words lingered in her mind longer than they should have. Then another interruption. A senior flight attendant approached Nathan once again, this time carrying a sealed envelope. She leaned close enough that almost nobody could hear. "It came from New York, sir." Nathan accepted it without opening the seal. "Thank you." As she turned away, Olivia caught sight of the envelope's corner. Printed in dark blue was the unmistakable corporate crest of Horizon Dynamics. Not the public logo. The private seal reserved exclusively for communications from the board of directors. She stared at it for only a heartbeat. Then convinced herself she must have been mistaken. After all, why would a man in a faded navy jacket be receiving confidential board correspondence moments before takeoff? Humiliation rarely ends with a single sentence. It grows when no one chooses to stop it. The aircraft finally pushed back from the gate. Outside the windows, airport vehicles moved with mechanical precision beneath the pale morning sky. Inside the cabin, conversations slowly returned, though the atmosphere had changed in ways most passengers could not explain. Olivia crossed one elegant leg over the other and continued reviewing the slides for the afternoon's board meeting. She had already forgotten Nathan. Or so she believed. 10 minutes into the taxi, unexpected turbulence forced the captain to pause before takeoff. The aircraft remained motionless near the runway while cabin crews secured the final service carts. One of the attendants approached Nathan. "Mr. Walker, we're sorry for the delay. No apology necessary. We've prepared another seat farther forward if you'd prefer more privacy." Nathan glanced at Lily, who was coloring quietly inside a small sketchbook. "We're comfortable here." The attendant nodded respectfully. "As you wish, sir." Olivia watched the exchange from the corner of her eye. Again. The same unusual courtesy. The same careful tone. This time, however, curiosity began replacing certainty. She leaned toward another executive seated across the aisle. "Do you know him?" The executive looked briefly toward Nathan before shaking his head. "No. Frequent flyer? I don't think so." She shrugged. "Interesting." Before the conversation could continue, Lily accidentally dropped a box of colored pencils into the aisle. Several crayons rolled across the carpet. Nathan immediately bent down to collect them. A polished dress shoe stopped one of the pencils before it rolled farther. Olivia picked it up between two fingers. For a brief second, their eyes met. She could have handed it to Lily. Instead, she looked at the worn backpack beneath Nathan's seat. Then at his faded jacket. A faint smile appeared. "I suppose business class really has become available to everyone." The words were quiet. Not whispered. Just loud enough. The executive beside her chuckled awkwardly. Another passenger lowered his eyes. Nathan remained crouched, gathering the remaining pencils one by one. He neither defended himself nor acknowledged the remark. Lily looked from Olivia to her father. "Dad?" Nathan placed the last pencil back into the box. "It's all right." He spoke softly enough that only Lily could hear. "People reveal themselves long before they know anything about you." Lily nodded, though she clearly didn't understand. She simply trusted him. A few rows behind them, the chief financial officer had heard every word. His jaw tightened. He reached instinctively for his phone before stopping himself. The second message still echoed in his mind. "Observe. Do not announce." He remained silent. Near the front of the cabin, another director quietly exchanged nervous glances with the company's general counsel. Neither spoke. Neither dared interrupt. Neither understood why the chairman wanted anonymity. But both understood one thing. Someone was making a mistake that could never be erased. The captain's voice finally filled the cabin. "Cabin crew, prepare for departure." Engines began to roar. The aircraft slowly turned toward the runway. Nathan looked out the window while Lily rested her head against his shoulder. Neither seemed concerned by what had happened. Across the aisle, Olivia reopened her presentation. Her confidence had fully returned. Soon she would stand before the board of directors and present another record-breaking quarter. Soon the directors would congratulate her leadership. Soon another promotion would be within reach. She smiled to herself. What she didn't know was that nearly every member of that board had already received the same confidential instruction less than an hour earlier. Do not interfere. Allow today's events to unfold naturally. Because the man quietly holding his daughter's hand was not merely attending the meeting. He had spent the last 23 years deciding who would sit at that boardroom table. And in less than 3 hours, Olivia Bennett would discover that asking Nathan Walker to leave his seat had never been about an airline seat at all. Truth does not always enter a room with applause. Sometimes it walks in carrying a worn leather bag. By the time the aircraft landed in New York, the uncomfortable silence that had settled over business class had dissolved into polite conversation. Passengers reached for their luggage. Phones lit up the moment the cabin doors opened. Executives hurried into the aisle, already discussing presentations, investment forecasts, and afternoon meetings. Nathan remained seated. Lily was still fastening the zipper on her little blue backpack. "There," she said proudly. "I did it myself." "You always do." He smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear before lifting the worn leather bag from beneath the seat. As they stepped into the terminal, a line of black SUVs waited outside the executive exit. Most of them carried Horizon Dynamics security decals. Olivia barely noticed. She was already speaking with 2 vice presidents walking beside her. "The board presentation should take 40 minutes. What about the shareholder representative?" one asked. "I'll answer whatever questions they have." Her confidence remained untouched. Several yards ahead, Nathan knelt briefly to straighten Lily's jacket. "I have one meeting," he said softly. "Then we'll go see the aquarium." Lily's eyes brightened. "You promise?" "I always keep my promises." She slipped her small hand into his. Neither of them looked toward the waiting executive vehicles. Instead, they entered the headquarters through the main employee entrance. Nathan insisted on it. He greeted the security guard with the same quiet smile he had offered the flight attendants. "Good morning." The guard checked his visitor badge. Then suddenly froze. His eyes moved from the badge to Nathan, then back again. For the briefest moment, confusion crossed his face. He reached instinctively for the phone beneath the desk. Nathan gently shook his head. "Not yet." The guard understood immediately. "Yes, sir." Nathan and Lily continued toward the elevators. From across the lobby, Olivia happened to witness the exchange. She frowned. Again. Another strange reaction. Another employee behaving as though the ordinary-looking father deserved unusual respect. Before she could think further, the elevator doors opened. Executives crowded inside. Nathan stepped back. "You first." Olivia entered without acknowledging him. The doors closed. Nathan simply waited for the next elevator with Lily. 7 minutes later, the executive boardroom on the 42nd floor stood ready. Fresh coffee filled the room. Presentation screens glowed softly against the walnut-paneled walls. Every director had already taken a seat. Only one chair remained empty. The chair at the head of the table. Nobody spoke about it. Nobody dared. Olivia connected her laptop with practiced efficiency. "I'll begin as soon as everyone arrives." The CEO glanced discreetly toward the empty chair. "We'll wait." Minutes passed. The room became unusually quiet. Outside, footsteps echoed along the marble hallway. The heavy conference doors opened. Olivia looked up automatically. Nathan Walker entered first. Still carrying the same worn leather bag. Still wearing the same faded navy jacket. Lily stood beside him, holding her little backpack. For one impossible second, nobody moved. Then every member of the board of directors rose to their feet at exactly the same time. The CEO. The general counsel. The chief financial officer. Independent directors. Outside investors. Every single one. The silence inside the room became almost overwhelming. The CEO stepped forward. "Welcome, Mr. Walker." Another director spoke immediately after. "We've been waiting for you." Nathan nodded politely. "Thank you for your patience." Only then did he look toward Olivia. Not with anger. Not with satisfaction. Simply with the calm expression of someone seeing her for the first time. Olivia remained standing beside the projector. Her presentation remote slowly slipped from her fingers and landed softly against the polished wooden floor. Her eyes moved from Nathan, to the directors, to the empty chair at the head of the table. Then back to Nathan again. The realization arrived without warning. The mysterious owner. The invisible chairman. The man whose signature had determined every major decision inside Horizon Dynamics for more than 2 decades, had been sitting beside her on the airplane all morning. Power is revealed not by the moment someone rises, but by what they choose to do after everyone else stands. No one in the boardroom sat down until Nathan did. He placed the worn leather bag beside the chair at the head of the table before helping Lily settle into a small seat near the window with a box of colored pencils and a children's puzzle that one of the executive assistants hurriedly brought into the room. "Will you be okay for a little while?" Nathan asked. Lily smiled. "I'll be quiet." "I know you will." Only then did Nathan take his seat. The directors followed. The silence felt heavier than any opening speech. Olivia remained standing. Her presentation still glowed on the large screen behind her. Quarterly Growth Strategy. The title suddenly seemed insignificant. Nathan folded his hands on the polished table. "Good morning." His voice was calm, unhurried. "I appreciate everyone making time for today's meeting." Nobody interrupted. He looked around the room before his eyes rested briefly on Olivia. There was no accusation in his expression, only observation. "I understand several people were expecting a discussion about expansion." A slight pause. "We'll postpone that." He pressed a small button on the conference table. The presentation disappeared. In its place appeared a single sentence. Internal Culture Review. Several executives exchanged uneasy glances. Olivia felt her heartbeat quicken. Nathan continued. "Revenue tells us how a company performs." His gaze moved slowly across the room. "Culture tells us who a company has become." Another pause. "For 6 months I've traveled through our offices without announcing who I was." A few directors lowered their eyes. "I visited regional branches, employee cafeterias, customer service centers. I spoke with receptionists, maintenance crews, junior analysts, interns." He spoke each sentence with the same measured rhythm. "No introductions. No cameras. No executive escorts." The room remained perfectly still. Nathan reached into the worn leather bag and removed a thin black folder. It contained no dramatic photographs, no sensational headlines, only reports, handwritten notes, anonymous employee surveys, exit interviews. He slid the folder toward the center of the table. "I've spent 23 years protecting this company." His voice remained almost gentle. "I never imagined I would one day need to protect it from its own leadership." The words landed without force, which somehow made them heavier. Olivia finally found her voice. "Mr. Walker." Nathan looked at her. She stopped speaking. Every sentence she had rehearsed during the flight suddenly sounded inadequate. Nathan did not rescue her from the silence. Instead, he opened the first report. Question. He looked toward the Human Resources Director. "How many employees resigned last quarter within their first 12 months? The director swallowed. I believe 23. Nathan slid another document across the table. 37. No anger. Only facts. He turned another page. Second question. His attention shifted toward operations. How many complaints involving workplace disrespect were formally investigated? The executive answered carefully. 5. Nathan nodded once. The correct number is 31. Again. No raised voice. Only evidence. Around the room, confidence began dissolving into discomfort. Lily continued coloring quietly by the window, unaware that the adults around her were confronting truths far more complicated than numbers on a spreadsheet. Nathan closed the folder. I have no interest in embarrassing anyone. His eyes settled on Olivia once more. I am interested in understanding why people inside this company have started measuring human worth by appearance. The room became impossibly quiet. No one needed him to explain what he meant. Everyone remembered the flight. Everyone remembered the seating request. Everyone remembered the silence that followed. Nathan folded his hands once again. This morning was not a test. He spoke softly. It was simply an ordinary day. His next sentence echoed through the boardroom with unsettling clarity. If kindness disappears the moment people believe no one important is watching. He paused. Then no amount of quarterly profit can honestly be called success. Justice becomes unforgettable when it arrives without anger. No one spoke for several long seconds. The silence inside the boardroom no longer felt uncomfortable. It felt honest. Nathan closed the black folder and rested both hands on the polished table. I didn't come here to punish anyone. His words surprised nearly everyone. Several directors looked at one another. Olivia slowly lifted her eyes. She had expected outrage, public humiliation, perhaps even immediate termination. Instead, Nathan remained exactly as calm as he had been on the airplane. The purpose of leadership, he continued, is not to prove who holds power. He glanced briefly toward Lily, who was quietly finishing the blue sky in her drawing. It's to decide how that power is used. He pressed another button on the conference console. The large screen displayed a list of employee names. None belonged to executives. Customer service representatives, receptionists, warehouse supervisors, junior software engineers, administrative assistants. Every name carried a short note beside it. Resigned. Transferred. Promotion declined. Exit interview. Nathan looked toward the human resources director. How many of these people were interviewed by senior leadership before they left? The answer came almost as a whisper. None. Nathan nodded once. I thought so. He turned another page. Over the past 18 months, 41 high-performing employees resigned after reporting disrespect from management. No one challenged the number. 26 specifically mentioned being judged before their work was evaluated. The room grew still. Olivia felt every sentence settling heavier than the last. Nathan never once looked satisfied. Only disappointed. He slowly turned toward Olivia. Ms. Bennett. She stood automatically. Yes, Mr. Walker. When you asked the flight attendant to move me this morning. His voice remained gentle. What information did you have about me? Olivia swallowed. You knew my name? No. My position? No. My responsibilities? No. My character? Her lips parted. No sound came out. Nathan answered the question himself. You knew only how I looked. He allowed the sentence to remain in the room. Long enough for everyone to understand it. I judged you. Her voice barely carried across the table. I was wrong. Nathan nodded. I agree. No sarcasm. No triumph. Only truth. Tears gathered in Olivia's eyes. I am deeply sorry. She looked toward Lily. And to your daughter. Lily looked up from her drawing. She smiled politely without fully understanding why the adults suddenly seemed so serious. Nathan finally spoke again. An apology matters. Another pause. But systems matter more. He turned toward the board. Beginning today, every executive, including myself, will spend one day each quarter working anonymously alongside frontline employees. Several directors looked surprised. No executive parking privileges during those visits. No advance notice. No assistants. No reserved offices. Only observation. Only listening. Only learning. He continued before anyone could respond. We will redesign promotion criteria. Leadership evaluations will include anonymous feedback from every level of the company. Respect will become a measurable performance metric. The general counsel quietly nodded. The CEO followed. One by one, every director voiced support. Then Nathan looked toward Olivia one final time. I will not ask for your resignation today. The room froze. Instead of relief, Olivia lowered her head even further. I expect you to earn the trust you assumed you already possessed. A tear slipped silently down her cheek. I understand. Nathan picked up the worn leather bag from beside his chair. The easiest decision would be removing one executive. He rested a hand on the chair before standing. The harder decision. He looked slowly around the room. Is rebuilding an entire culture. As he reached for Lily's backpack, every executive realized something extraordinary. The man with the greatest authority inside Horizon Dynamics had chosen accountability over revenge. And somehow, that made every person in the room feel judged more deeply than punishment ever could. The seat she refused to share became the lesson an entire company would never forget. 3 months passed. Autumn settled quietly over New York, painting the trees outside Horizon Dynamics headquarters in shades of gold and crimson. Employees hurried through the lobby carrying coffee cups and laptops, but something had changed. People smiled more often. Receptionists were greeted by name. Senior executives waited in the same cafeteria lines as interns during the company's new anonymous leadership days. The change had not happened overnight. It had happened one ordinary decision at a time. Nathan Walker never announced himself during those quarterly visits. Sometimes he answered customer service calls. Sometimes he helped unload delivery trucks. Sometimes he simply sat beside new employees during lunch without introducing himself. He continued wearing the same navy jacket, the same worn leather bag. Most people still had no idea who he was. That was exactly how he wanted it. One Monday morning, Lily walked beside him through the headquarters lobby on her school holiday. Dad? Yes? Do people know you're the boss now? Nathan smiled. They know I'm part of the company. But not the biggest part. He laughed softly. The biggest part isn't ownership. She looked puzzled. What is it? Nathan gently squeezed her hand. The people. Lily considered the answer for a moment before nodding as though it made perfect sense. Across the lobby, another familiar figure stepped through the revolving doors. Olivia Bennett. She looked different now. Not because of her clothes. Those remained elegant as ever. The difference was in the way she walked. She stopped at the reception desk before heading upstairs. Good morning, Sandra. The receptionist smiled warmly. Good morning, Ms. Bennett. How was your son's soccer tournament? Sandra's face brightened. He scored his first goal. I knew he would. The conversation lasted less than a minute. Yet several employees noticed it. Months earlier, Olivia would have walked past without slowing down. Now she knew nearly every receptionist by name. She visited departments she had rarely entered before. She asked more questions. She listened longer than she spoke. The promotion she once chased no longer seemed like the only measure of success. She spotted Nathan and Lily near the elevators. For a brief moment, neither moved. Then Olivia walked toward them. She knelt until she was level with Lily. I've been hoping I'd see you again. Lily smiled politely. Hi. Olivia handed her a small package wrapped in blue paper. Inside was a beautifully illustrated mystery novel. I remembered you liked books. Lily looked toward her father. Nathan nodded once. It's all right. Thank you, Lily said. Olivia stood again. She looked at Nathan. I still think about that flight. Nathan answered with the same calm voice she remembered. So do I. I can't change what happened. No. But I can make sure it never happens again. Nathan studied her quietly. Then he smiled. A small smile. The first genuine one she had ever seen from him. I believe you already have. The elevator doors opened. Employees stepped aside instinctively, expecting Nathan to enter first. Instead, he looked toward a young intern balancing a stack of files. You should go ahead. The intern hesitated. Are you sure? Nathan nodded. We're all going to the same place. The young man smiled gratefully and entered. Others followed. Nobody argued. Nobody competed. Nobody cared whose title was higher. As the doors closed, Olivia looked toward the polished metal panel beside the elevator. For an instant, she remembered another polished surface. The cabin wall of a business-class aircraft. One careless sentence. One ordinary seat. One extraordinary lesson. Outside the building, Nathan and Lily walked into the crisp afternoon sunlight. Lily slipped her hand into his. "Where are we going now?" Nathan looked toward the aquarium across the river. "I made you a promise." She smiled. "You always keep your promises." Together they disappeared into the crowd, unnoticed by most of the city. Yet inside Horizon Dynamics, their quiet example remained long after they were gone, reminding everyone who entered the building that respect should never be reserved for people whose importance is already known. Because character is revealed long before identity. And kindness costs far less than regret.